Hi, my name is Johnny Sanchez, and I'm going to be explaining the explosive and risk analysis of the DeRidder paper and pulp mill. So, a little bit of background of the DeRidder paper and pulp mill. It is based on DeRidder, Louisiana. The owner of the paper mill is Packing Corporation of America, and the explosion killed 3 people and injuring 7 others on the day of February 8th, 2017. So the cause of the accident is going to concern the paper pulping process, as this process requires distillation and a lot of separation in which a liquid and a vapor product are going to be formed. So looking at the diagram of the bottom right, we're going to have our first distillation column, which is going to be the turpentine stripping column. So vapor stream from the pulping process is going to go inside the distillation column and separate vapor turpentine and liquid foul condensate. So a little bit of foul condensate, it is a mixture of water, liquid water, and turpentine. So a little bit more information about turpentine. It is a byproduct of the separation and is extremely flammable at high concentrations. So staff were unaware of the safety hazards concerning turpentine and its flammability. So some miscommunication and lack of hazard response happened in this as there was a lot of turpentine accumulating in the tank while it was going through the continuous process of the pulping. So a lot of residue turpentine remained in the tank. Now, coincidentally, there was a pipe that needed fixing above the tank. So the requirement of a shutdown for the maintenance was required. So a lot of the inlets and outlets of the tank was closed off, but the contents inside the tank stood. So continuing the cause of the accident, high concentrations of turpentine stayed inside the tank during the shutdown process. So the staff brushed off the contents in the tank and believed nothing was going to happen since the majority of it was going to be water. Little did they know there was a lot of residue turpentine staying in the tank that was also being vaporized. So a little bit about the tank, it is a 100,000 gallon tank and it has a relief valve in the very top. So concerning the picture on the bottom right, we're going to have that bright red going to be the relief valve on top of the tank. So concerning the pipe that needed to be fixed, the paper mill actually approved for the workings and hired contract workers to weld the pipe above the tank so they could repair it. So a little bit about the CSB reporting this incident. The cause of the ignition was ultimately undetermined. Some assumptions was made as the ignition source of the sparks from the welding gun, or as witnesses report, dropping of a welding gun can be assumed. Now, with the relief valve, this relief valve was made so overpressure of the tank wouldn't happen. So it was exposed to ambient pressure and ambient air. So as the vaporization of turpentine, a lot of turpentine was escaping this relief valve. So the initial source from the sparks from the welding gun or the welding gun being dropped actually inflamed the turpentine vapor, leaving the relief valve. So as of this, it exploded, the tank exploded, and it flew 6 stories up, landing 375 feet away from where it was constructed, killing the 3 contract workers and injuring 7 others around the area. So starting from the safety malpractices, staff didn't communicate about the leftover contents in the tank, and the severity of turpentine was also overlooked. As they thought that it was a majority of water, they really didn't need to empty or clean out the tank, and turpentine was being vaporized during the time. So a significant amount of vapor inside the tank was turpentine, in which it was being purged out by the relief valve, in which any ignition source would have exploded that tank. So no proper maintenance of the equipment was also absorbed, as the contract workers did just throw out the sparks from the welding gun above the tank, not having any concerns about it. And if the dropping of the welding gun is true, then this could have also been prevented if they kept proper maintenance on their equipment. So some safety recommendations can be observed as the staff should be aware of safety hazards and concerns. So every operator and everybody who works at the paper mill should know how dangerous turpentine is, just to have a better look of how to work with this type of chemical. So more safety design should be implemented. Starting from the bottom right, the diagram shows that there's just going to be one pressure transmitter. There is no temperature transmitter or any component transmitter. So with this, the pressure vacuum breaker is going to be the relief valve that purges out a lot of the turpentine in which any ignition source could spark an explosion. So it did have a pressure control valve, but it had such of an influx of turpentine vapor coming out of the tank. So with any temperature, as the pressure is going to increase, since more gas is being inside the tank, the temperature is going to increase. If there is a temperature transmitter, maybe an operator would have known what was happening inside the tank, as well as a component as a lot of the turpentine was being vaporized. So in conclusion, this incident can be a precedent for future businesses to follow process safety. Maybe they could implement different training techniques with their operators, engineers, and administration when it comes to working with dangerous materials. And they can learn and identify the hazards of turpentine, mostly in the paper and pulp industry. Here are my conclusions, and I just want to say thank you for letting me present my project.